So to the Cash Physical Therapy Headquarters podcast. Today, we're doing something a little bit different. We have kind of a pre-planned training for you here today. And what we're going to be talking about is why your marketing hasn't worked yet. So many of you are out there working your faces off to grow and scale your businesses and to leave your mark in your communities and in the profession, but you're just spinning your tires. You're doing all the things that people told you to do. You're in based on everything that you see working for other people, you're doing it. But for some reason, one reason or another, it's just not working. Today, we're going to cover exactly why that's not working and give you some new perspectives and some new tactics that's going to help you finally create that consistent month over month growth that you've been hunting for. Because the difference between you and the people who are doing it, it's not that they're smarter than you. It's not that they're luckier than you. It's none of those things. It's actually something way simpler that all of you already have the skills to do. You're already doing it every single day when you're working with patients. Now we just got to apply that same way of thinking to your business. Ben, good morning, dude.
Morning. How you feeling?
I'm good, man. I'm good. This is this particular training, I know it's so necessary because I just did it for our coaching clients, and I know they got a tremendous amount of value out of it. And people are suddenly like, for the first time in like a year and a half, 2 years of their business, they're like, I finally understand like why this hasn't been working. And so pumped to break it down for everyone on the podcast today.
Yeah, it'll be good, and I know it's gonna be open for a lot of people too.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the topic: why is your marketing not working? And it all comes down to one really simple thing. It's called the theory of constraints. Ben, you know what the theory of constraints is. What's the theory of constraints?
Essentially, there's always one main bottleneck within your business, and if you don't identify it, you're essentially working on the wrong things, and you're just not leveraging your time correctly. And before you solve that main constraint, nothing else should really matter. You're not going to be able to go past that constraint. So that's my version of it. But curious what yours is.
Oh, it's exactly right. It's at any given time, there is one thing broken in your practice or the weakest link in the practice. And until that link is fixed, working on any of the other links is going to have diminishing or no return whatsoever because you haven't solved the right thing. And everyone is trying to solve their problems with more marketing, more leads. And that very well might be the actual constraint within your business. But when you change one link, if you solve one constraint, that's going to change the other links down the chain. It's like when a patient walks in with knee pain, you don't just start, strengthening their quads, right? You figure out what's actually causing whatever dysfunction they're having. Is hip issues? Is it poor foot mechanics? Is one weak link affects the entire chain. So your business is no different than that. Until you diagnose and treat the real bottleneck, everything else is just noise. And we're basically treating symptoms rather than the root cause. And so what I'm going to walk through is going to show you real life examples of this in action within your business, how to understand like what needs to change at each level of your practice, how to approach advertising scientifically, and then I'm going to lightly touch on we're lightly going to touch on what we call our GEM method, the grow and exit method. How do you scale a business, and how do you think about making changes in quarterly plans and annual plans in a way that's going to make your life easier as the business grows, so that eventually you have this self-sustaining asset like Ben has, where everything pretty much runs itself and you're getting offers from people who want to buy your practice. Now, Ben will never actually sell, but isn't it better to build a business that people want to buy? Because that's the business that you actually want to keep, because it's easy, it's profitable, and it gives you the fulfillment and joy that you want to have out of your business. And so that's really what we're going to be breaking down here today, all centered around the idea of the theory of constraints.
I think it's I usually love the analogy that I can't remember if it was you or Max that said about people go to sell their houses and get it all nice and looking great, and then by the time they go to sell it, they're like, oh, this is actually pretty nice. Do I actually want to sell it? It's the same thing with your business. Make it a business that is worth selling, because you're going to realize, hey, this is a business worth keeping. That's where I'm at. Because I thought I was going to eventually sell in the next 3 to 5 years, and now it's more so like, hey, actually, why? This is a business I enjoy, and
Right.
been really able to do all the fun stuff within the business now and hand off the things I don't really enjoy. And so it's fun, and why would I want to get rid of it?
Exactly. And many of you right now, you couldn't get someone to buy your practice even if you paid them. How many people listening right now know for a fact that most people would not trade places with them? Probably a lot. And
Mhm.
so the idea is not like you might be so far away from ever having a self sustaining asset, but your lives become a lot easier no matter what your goals are in your business when you approach business as if you are building a self-sustaining asset. Just like when you're treating your patients, you want them to be self-sufficient, you want them to be able to prevent future injuries from happening. Okay, and that starts from the very first session. And we have to approach our businesses the exact same way, where we can prevent future problems from happening, where we can consistently be getting stronger and healthier, so that eventually someone's like, hey, this is a really impressive machine. I want to invest in this. Okay, that's really what we're getting at here. And so the first point in understanding the theory of constraints, because a lot of people resist it because they don't want to change what they've been doing because it's gotten to them where they are so far. And the first thing you need to realize in order to effectively utilize the theory of constraints is we can't be married to any of the things that we've built within our practice, because what got you from A to B is not going to get you to C. There's 5 different stages that every practice owner has to go through. Let me share my screen real quick for us. Okay. Share. Okay. So this is a really ugly slide I made years ago for the first ever Clinical Marketer Live event, but it illustrates the point well. Okay. What got us here is not going to get us there. Okay. So there's 5 stages that you might be in. You're in one of these stages for sure. You're either a side hustle where you have the least amount of leverage possible within your business. You're working nights and weekends and just hustling all of the time, and your life is pretty dang hard at this stage. Okay, the next stage is you're a job owner. You finally go all in your practice, but now you're wearing every single one of the hats. You're spread incredibly thin. And again, you have very little leverage in this business. No one is ever going to buy this because no one wants to trade spots with someone who's working 80 hours a week. Okay, and then there's the business manager where, okay, you have this job, you built some good operations, you have something that's semi-consistent. Now you can start to add people into the equation. And now instead of running all of these things, you're now managing people. You're just managing the business, watching the KPIs, helping make sure that your staff, your admins, everybody is doing what it is they need to do. You have more leverage here, but you're still working your face off, supporting your teams. Next stage, entrepreneur. Then the final stage is industry leader. This is where you become an investor. This is where the business actually runs itself. And you are now, anything that you're putting back into the business, you are now just investing in it because it's growing and compounding your wealth, or you're taking your dividends that you're paying yourself and investing it into other areas, as Ben and I are, where we're investing in real estate. Okay, this is where everyone wants to be. This is where you can sell your practice, or you can hold it because it's producing so much profits and having such big impact that you're able to invest in other things. Now, to get from each one of these stages requires completely different sets of skills. It requires different systems. It requires completely different mindsets. Like, Ben, to walk us through kind of like your journey, like the different skills that you had to learn, or the different systems that you had to add on as you ascended through each of these stages.
Yeah, I mean, the side hustle is like learning how to do sales, how to start thinking about tracking metrics, um, marketing, all these administrative stuff that
Mhm.
goes with it, the legal aspect of starting a practice. Then job owner turns into, okay, how do I start juggling all these different tasks of I've got patients, but really just create a job for myself.
Right.
I'm doing all the phone calls, I'm doing all the marketing, I'm doing all the sales, doing all the fulfillment,
How
doing
do we
all the
structure
accounting.
our time, right?
Exactly, how to structure time. And then business manager is even more so. You're starting to think about, I need to bring on other team members, and you start bringing on maybe your first front desk, your first physical therapist. Now you're learning how to manage people, but you're still doing it all. You just actually added a lot more to your plate because now you're managing somebody and they might not clearly be taking things off your plate quite yet. And then you move into the entrepreneur where you start getting time frame back. You're no longer trading, your money for time. You've brought on other individuals for fulfillment. They are seeing the patients. You've got somebody doing the phone calls for you. Now yours is supporting the team
Right.
and getting more of your time back.
And this is
And
also where you're like promoting from within. You're promoting your top PT or the person that has the best leadership abilities to become more of a clinic director. And now it's their job to do all the herding and the managing of the staff. And now you are truly a leader within the business, where now your job is the vision and the mission. And now your job is really just deciding.
Yep.
And now you're building the people that build the business for you, but you're still heavily involved in making sure everyone's doing what it is they need to do.
Yep. And then the last stage is where it kind of gets fun. You are able to make a bigger impact. You can decide what you want to do with your time. Not all your time is needed to be dedicated to the business. You can start exploring what other things you enjoy in life, taking other ventures. Like for me, it's spending more time in clinical marketer, helping other people be able to achieve the same thing. And then also the real estate. I'm doing a lot of real estate investing and diversifying my retirement. And so get to really explore and do other fun stuff outside of just the business.
And I will say, because over the last couple months, I've dove really heavily into real estate, especially thanks to you, Ben. Obviously, like providing so much like information and guidance to help me get started. But when your business runs so smoothly that you have the time to think about something other than the thing that you've obsessed and spent every second thinking about for the last 5-10 years, it's really exciting to learn something completely different and work on something outside of the business. So it's really, really fun when you get to that stage, and it doesn't take a decade to get there. Ben, you did it in 5-6 years.
Yeah, about 5 years. Started getting into real estate, and clinical marketer started with clinical market about 3.5-4 years in, and then real estate more in the about 4 to 5 year mark. So it can happen really quickly.
Right. And so what this actually looks like. So every single stage requires different sets of skills and different sets of operating systems. And so for many of you, like when you're adding on Facebook ads, for example, maybe you got yourself to $10,000, $15,000 a month doing nothing but workshops. But now you're realizing like, oh, smoke, like word of mouth, referrals, and workshops. I'm doing every single thing that I possibly can in order to like maximize that. You reach a ceiling. You can't grow any further than that. And so that's when most people are like, okay, let's start investing in paid ads. But that is unlocking an entirely new set of skills, because it's not just enough to add on Facebook ads, because now we're dealing with a completely different type of buyer. And that's, if you don't change, you change your lead acquisition, but now, just like I said earlier, now you have to change down the chain as well. Now your conversion process, your sales process has to evolve and adapt for this new type of buyer. And a lot of people are getting stuck because they're adding on paid advertising, expecting it to work and function for the system and process that they built for word of mouth and referrals. You might think you're great at sales, but every single person you've sold to date was someone who was referred or already did all their homework and research before talking to you. To scale beyond that, to scale beyond the relationships where we're dealing with more skeptical people, we have to build better sales systems to accommodate that next level of scaling and work. And for you to get into the business manager stage, where you're able to hire people, you're able to retain them because you're able to keep them full, you're going to have some level of automated patient acquisition to be able to confidently bring those people on and keep them busy, which means we have to change the operating system that we're funneling people into. And so that's what we mean by what got you from A to B is not going to get you to C. Adding in just paid advertising on top of the system you already built, it's not going to work. It's like connecting a puzzle piece that wasn't made for it. Okay. So if we think about it like a puzzle, you have your sales piece right here. You have your word of mouth piece that fits perfectly with it. And now you're trying to add this Facebook ads piece to the end of it, and it doesn't fit. But instead, we need to put it next to the word of mouth piece. And then we need a missing piece here that connects it to our current sales system. We need some sort of connecting piece, lead nurturing, to connect to the new type of traffic source to the sales systems that are already working. And a lot of people, they're spinning their wheels because they're thinking, our system works. We're running Facebook ads. They're not working. Facebook ads don't work. But what you're not seeing is that there's a new piece that you have to add to your sales system to adapt your process. If you looked at the numbers and you looked at it from a perspective of, I'm willing to change anything in my business, when you start running ads, it's obvious that the lead acquisition isn't the constraints anymore, as long as you're getting leads. The constraint is the lead nurturing and conversion piece that you haven't adapted for that new traffic source that you added on.
I think
That's
that's
a mouthful. Does that make sense, Ben?
Oh, it does. It does. And I think that's where practice owners get in really deep trouble, is when they start writing off different marketing channels as not working.
Mm-hmm.
And then they never revisit it and just blame it on the marketing channel.
Right.
And reality is, it wasn't the marketing channel. It was the clinic owner's inability to adapt and add that missing piece to be able to utilize that marketing channel.
Right. And we had someone who wanted to join, but they refused to follow up with leads because they said, like, that's slimy. I don't want to like sell people. I want people to just show up and see my value and buy. It's like, do you know how arrogant and naive that is?
And selfish.
Right.
You're not willing to take 5 to 10 minutes to follow up with somebody and make sure they get the help that they need, when you know that you can solve their problem. And now they go the rest of their life maybe not getting the help they need because you were so arrogant and selfish that you said, "No, I'm too good to do that." Like, come on.
Right. And it's like you're applying this traditional healthcare setting logic where it's like you never had to sell to this new cash business that you started, and thinking that people are just going to see the value. The odds are that if you're listening to this, you spent 3, 5, 10 plus years in the system before you decided that this is so broken, I need to go start my own thing. And if it took you 5 to 10 years from the inside to understand the value of cash-based services, but you're expecting patients who aren't a part or inside of that system to come to that conclusion because they opted into an ad, that is an unreasonable expectation. And so we have to be able to condense the lessons that we learned that caused us to start our cash practice. We need to learn how to convey the lessons that we learned on the inside to someone else in a short period of time. That's a very important skill. Otherwise, it's going to take them 5 to 10 years of trial and error with treatment that doesn't work, putting themselves in a much worse situation as far as their wellness is concerned, to reach the conclusion that you came to in years of being on the inside of the process. And so it's like, as you said, it's selfish to not be willing to learn the skill of educating and building trust with people that don't have the same perspective and information that you have, that makes you understand what your value really is.
Yeah. I view it as an ethical obligation to be able to overcome internal beliefs or lack of skills to be able to help more people.
And so the key thing is, okay, so we have to be using the theory of constraints, right? But in order to be effective with the theory of constraints, we have to look at it as our business as is Play-Doh or clay. Everything, you have to be willing to change and move everything based off the needs of the business and not be attached or have an ego with the things that we built so far, because what got you here is not going to get you there. To get to the next level, we need to be able to convince strangers of our value, not just people who already come in knowing it, because that's how you're going to scale much more quickly. Otherwise, you're really just relying on the market or the APTA or whatever your national organization is to educate the masses for you. And basically, you're just waiting for success. And I've never heard of anyone who's been successful by just waiting and hoping for it. And if they have, they probably suck and have a huge ego, and no one enjoys being around them because they think that they got it figured out. When it's like, no, you got real lucky. Right? Yep. You're not the 0.001%. Okay. Odds are you need to be intentional about this and be willing to adapt to grow. Because, if learning sales is your constraint and you think that it's slimy or gross, like every single one of the biggest companies in the world, they have sales teams for a reason. Okay. It's because it works and people need information and they need relationships and they need connection to trust, especially if you're selling something that costs a couple $1,000s. Anyway, I digress. Okay. Take that home. What got you here won't get you there. And if you've been stuck at point B trying to get to C, maybe we need to take a look at what we've been doing and ask ourselves, maybe it's time to do something completely new and fundamentally different than what we've tried. Okay.
Yep.
Now, the next piece of this is scientific advertising. Okay. Why is our marketing not working? Okay. Now, the theory of constraints basically says that, there's 5 core functions of the business. Okay. There's lead acquisition, lead nurturing, conversions, fulfillment, and retention. And when all of these are in harmony and they're operating at their highest level, well, then the only way to scale beyond it is to then add function number 6, which is people. Okay. So the theory of constraints really focuses on those core 5 functions, but the only way to grow the fulfillment piece, for example, is by adding people into it. Now, when it comes to our advertising, a lot of times like we had already mentioned, you think you need more leads. But if you look at your numbers and you look at your data and you're using a scientific method to grow and scale your business, well, then you might find that it's like, okay, we need more leads. We need more leads. That's one way to look at it. Or you might look at the data and find out it's like, oh, snap. Maybe one of our PTs isn't doing nearly as good of a job of reaching the outcome they want to have. And so our referrals are way down. But if he was performing as well as our other PT, our referrals would go up by X%, and then we'd also hit our revenue goals. Or maybe you look at retention, and we're only averaging 4 visits per patient on average. If we doubled that, we would crush our revenue goal and wouldn't have to spend another cent on advertising. And so scientific scaling is basically looking at all of our data, figuring out which is the biggest constraint, and we know which is the biggest constraint by running simple projections. Okay. Would it create more profit and revenue if we increased our lead volume by 20%? Or would it increase profit the most if we increased our referrals by 5%? Or to create the most profit and revenue if we increase the average visits per patient by 3%? Okay. And so these are the different levers that we might identify if we aren't reaching our revenue goals. And then we can run a very simple analysis on these once we kind of know what our levers are. And we call it ICE. The ICE, basically an ICE audit. It's an acronym for impact, confidence, and ease. And so what I just went over with the 3 different levers where it's like, okay, 20% more leads, 5% more referrals, or 10% more visits per patient. That's the impact. And so we want to estimate what is the percentage impact on the bottom line if we move this needle by this educated guess at how much we can actually move it. The next is on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are we that we can actually make that impact with the plan that we would have in place to do that? And then the last piece, the E, is ease. How easy is it to execute on the plan that we are hypothesizing will have this impact? Then you just add that together. The percentage impact, a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you? And a scale of 1 to 10, how easy is it? The highest score, that's the plan to go and execute on. And if you can project it and you have good data and can link those changes to actual profit, well, then it is a heck of a lot easier to kind of figure out which one of those levers is going to have the biggest impact on profit at the end of the day. Ben, you had a situation like that when I think it was when we first started working together, maybe even just before, where you thought your constraint was lead generation, but it was actually something else. You want to share that?
Yeah, it was we were working on, we wanted to generate more leads, but we were averaging like 6.5, 7 visits per plan of care.
Yeah.
I was like, why don't we just get this up a little bit more and try and get this closer to 9 or 10 and just drastically decrease the number of leads that we needed to have. Not only that, it also helped us boost our Google reviews because we were making a bigger impact. People were staying in our world longer, and we gave us also the chance to follow up with people more that we did ask for a Google review and remind them. And so just by keeping people in your world longer and helping them achieve bigger goals, our reviews went up, and then also referrals went up too.
Yeah.
Because people are getting life-changing results at a higher clip because they're sticking around longer. So it really helped multitude of different
Right.
things.
So the theory of constraints, and I'm about to get into like scientific advertising. It's really just what's the biggest issue? What are the potential leading and lagging indicators or levers that we could pull that's going to create the biggest impact for the business, and then just stay laser focused on that. So an example of this in action is we just ran this analysis for clinical marketer. And so we took a look at okay, we know we want more booked calls because we're trying to scale revenue, scale our impact. Now, the levers that we knew we could pull are okay, we could optimize the opt in rate for the landing pages for our ads. We think we can increase that by 8%. We could increase the show up rate of the calls that we're having. We feel good about being able to get that to 7%. And we could improve the click through rate of our ads to drive more traffic to our landing pages. And if everything else stayed the same, but we only changed each of these, we just ran a really simple projection based around that, based on all the other data we have. And we found it's like, okay, well, the clear winner here, when we do an ICE analysis and we have enough data to connect it to revenue, is like this is a $40 to $50,000 difference when we do this. But if we don't actually look at our numbers and we don't actually think about like, okay, I got to increase sales, but what are the levers I can pull to increase sales, and then run some kind of analysis on each of those ideas, odds are you're going to always be working on the wrong stuff and nothing's ever going to work. But this analysis took us literally less than 10 minutes to put together. And when you can do this every single month, that's when you actually create this month over month growth. And that's originally like what drew us to Ben when you were a client and wanted to like bring you on and make you a partner with us, because you were the only person we knew that actually did this. And it's the reason why your practice has grown so much. It's the reason why our clients have obsessed over this and learned it. And now we've, had like 15 clients that went from $8,000 a month to now doing 7 figures. It's the most important thing you can do.
Yeah, it's you're literally wasting time focusing on anything else that doesn't really move the needle or matter. And I think it can feel why some people do is it feels good to just check. We talked about this on the last podcast. It feels good to just check off things off your to-do list, and even if it's not the number one thing, just feels good to have that dopamine rush. I think some people are just addicted to that, even though they know that it's not going to move the needle as much as if they're just do the thing that they were avoiding. It's usually the biggest constraint is the thing that you're avoiding to do, like that hard conversation that you need to have. Your main bottleneck is your PT's not converting where it needs to be. You need to have a hard conversation, let them go and start the hiring process, but you don't want to
Right.
do that, right? And that's what gets people in trouble and delays
Right. And I
progress.
think a lot of people say like they're bad at business or they just don't like business. They just like treating patients. And I want to reframe that for a lot of people because you just gave me an idea. And I think this might be a powerful reframe. It's like if you love treating patients, ask yourself why you love treating patients. I've heard things like they enjoy the puzzle, they enjoy like figuring out what's going on and actually solving something that someone else failed at, and the fulfillment. What other reasons can you think of, Ben, of why people just love treating patients?
Obviously, like helping
Yeah.
people, um, being able to connect with other individuals that are coming in that you're helping them with.
Right.
So
And so when you use scientific scaling or the theory of constraints, you should love business the same way you love patients because you are solving a puzzle. You're using the scientific method to identify hypotheses and issues. You're running an analysis to figure out what's the best course of action to solve this problem. And by solving that problem, you get all this fulfillment because by doing so, you're helping not just one person, but you're helping hundreds, if not thousands of people. And so stop looking at business as this thing that you're bad at because you're not bad at it. It's just ambiguous to you right now. But if you follow the theory of constraints, track your numbers, and use a scientific method to do it, you should love business the same reason you love treating patients. Just start seeing it as treating your business, not business.
right, right. That's the thing is like if you truly love helping people, then you need to
Right.
scale. You're gonna be able to help more people. Like if it was just me, like my cap was seeing 20-25 patients per
Mm,
week. That's only 20-25 people that we're helping. We're helping thousands of patients every single year now. There wouldn't be possible if it was just
right.
me. So if you want to make an impact and truly help people, scaling is the
Right.
way to
If
do
you
that.
love patient care for fulfillment, just wait until you get good at the analysis and diagnosis and implementation of treating your business. Because when you start to get to feel the fulfillment of serving masses of people, and then the fulfillment of serving your staff that treat those patients for you, there's nothing better in the world than getting to see people who join your team because they believe in you and they believe in your vision, starting to enrich their own lives because of the decisions, the diagnoses, and the protocols you're following to grow your business.
Yeah, wait until you hire somebody that, and they stick around and they tell you that if it wasn't for you in this position, that they want to be in the
Right.
profession.
Right.
That's if you think that you've made some big impacts on your patients and whatnot, and the feeling that you get from that, wait until you have a staff member that tells you that, or how much it's impacted them and their
Right.
family, and their kids, and there's no better
Right.
feeling.
So I want to wrap this up, the theory of constraints, by applying this scientific method to advertising. Because a lot of you who have tried marketing or done paid ads, it just hasn't worked out yet. And the number one reason why it hasn't is because you're promoting the wrong offer. And it's really helpful to to learn what offer should you present by understanding scientific advertising. Okay, and so there's a book, Scientific Advertising, that I highly recommend everyone pick up and read. It makes marketing a hell of a lot more fun when it's a puzzle rather than creative genius, which I am not, but I'm good at figuring stuff out. And so I want to break this down for everyone. So number one is, when you're advertising, we want to use human psychology. We are interested and we build trust with people that know and understand us better or as well as we understand ourselves. That means when we're advertising, we don't want to be generalists. We want to be very, very specific to a very specific diagnosis, to a very specific lifestyle, to a very specific person. Because the person and the advertiser who can describe the problem the best is always going to be perceived to have the best solution. And so when we're writing ads, we want to target runners with hip pain, or CrossFitters with shoulder pain, or new moms with pelvic pain. Very, very specific, because then we can use relatability statements that are only unique to the people who have the problems that you're talking about. And that's what's going to get them to be like, pay attention and actually care what it is you're offering. Now, what you're offering, I'm going to share my screen real quick, because I get a lot of pushback from clinics who don't want to, they want to promote full priced services. They don't want to discount their services, right? Because they think it's going to pull in the wrong people. They're going to lose money, yada, yada, yada. I want to demystify this for you, because whenever you advertise a full price thing, you are losing tens of thousands of dollars more than you were than just offering a $100 discount. And it's, again, based in A, human psychology, and B, simple freaking math. Okay. So I'm going to show you the math. Okay. This is why when people are advertising, they are using discounted vouchers. Okay. And again, it all is just simple math. Okay. So I'm going to explain this for everyone real quick. Okay. So this top row is our average plan of care. Okay. The average order value, essentially, or lifetime value of the client. Here's how much we're spending in ads. And then this is deciding, how many leads are actually being generated based off of these. Okay. And so this is comparing a low voucher price versus a high voucher price. Let's say we're advertising a $97 visit, or compared to a $300 visit. Now, when we're advertising something that is more expensive, fewer people are going to be interested in it, which means our cost per lead is going to be much higher, which means far fewer leads. Okay. Now, they could be higher quality leads. Sure, maybe. Okay. At least maybe a higher percentage of the lead volume are higher quality leads. But here's what happens. Okay. With the $97 voucher, we get way more interest, $20 per lead. So we get significantly 10x more leads than we would have if we advertised a full price thing. Okay. Now, based off of our booking rates, and our conversion rates, this is where the huge difference happens. And so if we have a 50% lead to booking rate, we're booking 37 patients compared to 3 over here. Okay. So 50% lead to booking rate is good when we're talking about online advertising. Even if you're charging a high price thing, we have found in the 6 years we've been doing this that the difference between a $97 voucher and a $300 voucher, the quality difference is not that big. Okay. It's still around 50% of the people you're bringing in are still a good fit for the practice. Right. And so we found no evidence to suggest that this is going to completely derail the 50% lead to booking rate. Okay. So lead to IE, again, 50%. Now our cost per initial. Okay, $40 versus $400. Which business do you think is in a better position to grow and outscale their competition? Ben, humor me.
Yeah. So the main question is like, if you can outspend them, or what's your question on that?
What the path you were going with that right there?
Yeah. So I can, when it comes to advertising, it's like, who can just spend the most? I can crush my competitors by just outspending them, because our value, or average visit per plan of care, and the average revenue that's generated by each patient is substantially higher than any other clinic. And that's why it's really easy for us. It's really difficult to be an insurance-based clinic, because you can't set your own rates. I can crush our competition because we can set our rates, and because our average patient spends more with us than any other clinic, I can also outspend them and acquire and outbid them when it comes to marketing on Facebook ads and also Google ads.
Right. And so and I'm going to give you a scenario where it's like, okay, if we are charging a higher price, even if the lead to booking rate skyrockets, it's still going to amount to far less income. Okay. So cost per initial eval, $40 versus $400. Now, if we have a 75% eval to package close percentage, okay, 75% of patients actually show up, 28 versus 3 initial evals actually completed. And if we have a 60%, a low conversion rate, we're talking 16 packages versus 1.6. Okay. This is the difference between a $36,000 ad revenue month and a $4,000 ad revenue month. And so it's not that we're discounting, rates to make it easier for people to get in. Yeah, yes, that's an element of it, but it's all about volume, finding the right price of advertising to find quality enough leads and low enough to generate the volume of leads that we actually need to allow our lead to booking rate and our eval to package close rate to take care of the rest. It's all just math. If you remove the ego, the people who are willing to remove the ego and do a discounted upfront rate that have a great conversion rate on the back end, they're steamrolling the people who are unwilling to do this because they think it's devaluing their services. It's like, that's all ego, because at the end of the day, you're in this business to help people and to build a profitable business. This one's helping and generating 22x more profit. That's outrageous. Okay. And so that's the simple math. That's why it's done. It's not just like this gimmicky sales tactic to get people in. It's just good math. And that's really all that it comes down to. Now, I told you, let's say that our initial, our lead to booking rate, instead of 50% when we're charging, advertising a full price thing, let's say that this goes up to 75%. 75%. Okay. That still is not a good a very big difference. Let's say that every single lead that comes in actually buys. Okay. So this is times 1. Okay. Even if every single lead you generate with this higher voucher price actually comes in, and let's say that the initial is completed. Let's say that this is also 100%. Every single one of them comes in. Okay. If every single lead you get books an appointment, every single one of them comes in, and your close percentage, Ben, what's your close percentage right now?
For what part of the stage?
ProConnect, eval the package.
Eval the package, we're at 60%.
At what?
60%.
Okay. So if you're at 60%, and that's your eval the package close percentage?
Yep. So if eval comes in, so that is our conversion for, conversion. So if they
for Facebook,
10 people come in,
got it. Okay.
For Facebook.
Okay. So if you're world class like Ben, let's even put this. Let's put this at 80%. Okay. So you full price voucher, you generate every single lead comes in, every single lead books an eval, every single one of them shows up, and 80% of them actually buy a package. You're still generating 3x more if you would have just advertised a cheaper voucher. And so a lot of you are trading these massive results, or you could be getting these massive results if you would just realize that what got you from A to B won't get you to C, and built a process for following up, nurturing leads to get them scheduled so you can handle this volume of leads. If you can build a system to handle this volume of leads, you will steamroll everyone because you can afford to spend way more to acquire each and every patient than anyone else who's, letting their ego get in the way of their advertising approach. So this is just one example of scientific advertising. But for many of you, your advertising or your paid ads are failing because you don't understand this or the psychology of how to target and speak to the hearts and minds of the people you're trying to reach. Now, if this is something that you want to learn how to do, book a call with us at clinicalmarketer.com. We'll give you a full practice audit. We'll take you through the theory of constraints, figure out what's actually going on in your business, and lay out a plan to help you grow and scale your practice to hit your goals, whether you're trying to get to 20K a month, 50K a month, or 100K, 200K a month and beyond. So go to clinicalmarketer.com, schedule a call if you want to learn all about this. When you do and follow this method, our approach, we call this the GEM method, the grow and exit method, where even if you don't want to sell your business one day, we still want to build it using the scientific method, using the theory of constraints, because the end result is always a self-sustaining, profitable business that if your priorities change, if something happens in your life and you want to sell your practice, you can. That's the ultimate safety net, where if you love what you do, but you need cash, you can sell the thing and pull in a couple $1 million. That is the end result of the theory of constraints, and you just accidentally keep growing. That's what learning this can do for you.
Just accidentally.
Pretty much. Thanks for listening, everybody. If you have any questions on this, don't hesitate to reach out. If you want to work on this with Ben and I, just go to clinicalmarketer.com, apply to work with us, and we'll reach out and break down exactly what working with us would look like, do the whole practice audit, help you figure out what's the constraint in your business. Have a good day, everyone. Have a good 4th of July, by the way. Get after it.